Hello, everyone. The kettle clicked off, but nobody moved to pour. The sound should have been ordinary. In the wooden house, it always was. But this morning, it landed differently, like the house was listening for something else, and got the wrong answer. Tu Na sat at the edge of the bed with her feet on the floor, not fully standing, not fully lying down. Her hand rested low on her stomach, not dramatic, just steady, as if she was holding a place that could slip if she forgot it. Across the room, Henry slid his toy car along the plank line, careful where the wood dipped. No engine noises, no crashing. He moved it the way a child moves something when the adults are quiet for reasons he doesn't understand. But his body does. Ba Tang opened the window wider than usual. The air came in cool and thin, carrying the smell of damp soil and something cooking at the neighbor's house. She didn't fill the room with advice. She didn't ask how Tu Na slept. She just put a folded cloth on the chair and smoothed it twice, like order could be borrowed from fabric. Tuna's phone lay face down on the table. It hadn't buzzed yet. That was the problem. She didn't want it to buzz. She didn't want the jolt in her chest, the quick scan of the screen, the calculation of what the words meant. But she also didn't want the long silence that made her imagine every possible reason Alex wasn't calling. Waiting had started to feel like a second job. She tried to sip warm water. Her throat tightened anyway. The taste was plain, but her mouth still felt like metal. Henry looked up at her, then at the phone, then back at her. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. His eyes held the shape of a question without making noise. Tuna forced her fingers to loosen around the cup. On the wall, the clinic paper Ba Tang had taped up earlier sat flat and bright against the wood. The words were simple. The message wasn't. Tuna's pregnancy was weak. The doctor had said it gently. But the truth didn't come gently. It sat behind everything. It turned small things into threats, stares, heat, bad news, a raised voice. Even a phone call. Ba Tang moved a plate of food closer to Tu Na without a word. Rice, a bit of boiled vegetable, nothing heavy, nothing exciting, just something that would keep a body going. Tuna stared at it longer than she meant to. Then she lifted her chopsticks and took one bite because Henry was watching, and she couldn't teach him that fear makes you stop eating. Henry nodded once, satisfied, like he'd just checked a box that made the day slightly safer. Outside, a motorbike passed on the road. The sound rose, then fell away. Alex should have been that sound. Earlier, leaving. He had left early. He had kissed Henry's hair. He had looked at Tu Na's face like he wanted to say something. Then he had glanced at his phone, and whatever he'd almost said stayed behind his teeth. Tu Na hadn't stopped him. She hadn't asked for promises. Promises had started to feel like paper, easy to fold, easy to tear. Now the house was quiet in a way that wasn't restful. It was guarded. At the company, the building looked normal from the street. Workers came and went. A delivery truck backed in with a groan of brakes. Someone laughed near the gate, then quickly lowered their voice when they realized they were laughing too loudly. Inside, Lan's desk was already a battlefield. Schedules stacked on top of schedules, calls waiting, messages marked urgent. A list of names who believed 5 minutes with Alex could fix everything. Lan's fingers moved fast, but her mind moved faster. She'd learned to protect Alex's time, like it was money, because it was. It bought calm at home, It bought sleep. It bought the chance for Tu Na to breathe without flinching. She was halfway through moving a meeting when the receptionist's voice came through, tight. "Ms. Lan, she's here." Lan stood so quickly her chair scraped. Her heart didn't race. It dropped, because her body recognized what her brain hadn't said yet. Alex's mother. She hadn't called. She hadn't sent anyone ahead. She hadn't waited for an invitation. She was simply there. Lan walked out, straightening her blouse as she moved, like respect could be worn into place. The hallway felt narrower than usual. Then Alex's mother appeared at the end of it, and the hallway seemed to belong to her. She didn't look rushed. She didn't look angry. That was worse. She carried her bag in one hand and a calm certainty in the other. She came in like someone stepping into a room where a decision had already been made. Lan stopped in front of her, hands clasped lightly, voice quick. "Ma'am?" Then her throat tightened and the old habit came out. "That you?" Alex's mother set her bag down on a chair beside Lan's desk, as if she planned to stay. The movement was small, but it claimed space. She looked at Lan, not unkindly, but with focus. "Tuna's pregnancy is weak," she said. No soft start, no careful language. Lan felt the words hit, heavy and clean. She'd heard it in fragments, a message from Ba Tang, a quiet note, a look on Alex's face when he thought nobody was watching. But hearing it out loud, spoken like a fact that couldn't be argued, made Lan's stomach tighten. Alex's mother continued, voice steady. From now on, Alex's schedule must have gaps. She didn't say try to, she said must. "If anyone fills those gaps," she added, "I will deal with it." Lan exhaled without meaning to. It wasn't relief exactly, it was permission. Lan had been guarding the schedule alone, pushing back against people who thought deadlines mattered more than a woman's health, more than a child's stability. She'd been doing it politely, carefully, always afraid that one wrong move would make Alex look weak. Now Alex's mother was saying weakness didn't matter. Survival did. Lan nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Across the office, Mai stood near the glass wall, holding a folder like it was armor. Her posture was perfect. Her face was controlled. But her eyes were fixed on the older woman the way someone watches a door closing. Alex's mother's gaze shifted once. It landed on Mai like a pin. "Are you Mai?" she asked. Mai dipped her head, voice low and correct. "Da." Alex's mother didn't smile. She didn't frown. She didn't ask anything else. The lack of questions felt like the strongest message of all. Then she turned back to Lan. "Choose someone to sign in his place," she said. "Choose someone to attend meetings in his place." Lan's mind instantly ran through names. Who had authority? Who had loyalty? Who wouldn't use this as leverage? She could already feel the arguments coming. We need Alex. Only Alex can. Alex's mother cut through it before it even formed. "Alex cannot be dragged away from home because of calls," she said. "Not now." Lan nodded again. "Yes, ma'am." The office noise shifted. People kept typing but softer. People kept moving but slower. The room had learned to listen without showing it. Lan sat and opened the calendar. She started pulling meetings out like thorns, reassigning, delegating, pushing, canceling. Every change created a blank space, and each blank space felt like it was being carried, invisibly. back to the wooden house where Tu Na was trying to keep her breathing even. Alex's mother stood beside Lan's chair, watching the screen. Not hovering like a manager, standing like a wall, Lan sent messages. She assigned signatures. She selected who would go into which room and speak for Alex without pretending to be him. Mai watched from a distance, still holding her folder. She didn't move closer. She didn't speak. But inside, something was recalculating. The schedule gaps were not just empty time. They were barriers. Places where Mai used to slip in with an excuse, a quick update, a late meeting, a call that had to be answered because it sounded urgent. Those excuses lived in the chaos. Alex's mother was removing the chaos. Mai understood the danger of that immediately. When the older woman stood in the company and spoke like this, the small openings around Alex narrowed. Not because Alex had changed, but because the doorway to him was being rebuilt. And rebuilt by someone who didn't care who got shut out. Alex's mother finally lifted her bag again. Lan stood automatically, respectful. Alex's mother didn't offer praise. She didn't need to. Her silence was approval. At the door, she paused, not because anyone called her back, but because she chose to leave something behind. She turned her head slightly, her eyes finding Mai again. Just once. Be careful, she said, quiet. She didn't explain what she meant. She didn't have to. Then she walked out. The door closed behind her, and the office did not relax. It tightened, because now everyone knew the rules had changed, and nobody had been asked if they agreed. Lan returned to her desk and stared at the new gaps on the calendar. Real gaps, protected gaps. Mai looked at those gaps and understood something else. If she couldn't get in through the schedule anymore, she would have to find another way. And that was when people started doing dangerous things. Back at the house, the afternoon moved slowly, the way it does when you're trying not to upset anything. Tu Na lay down because Ba Tang told her to. Henry climbed onto the bed with careful knees, like the mattress might crack under wrong weight. He rested his cheek near Tu Na's shoulder, but kept his eyes open. He listened to everything. A bird outside, a pot lid in the kitchen, the faint sound of a motorbike far away. Tu Na's phone stayed face down. Then it buzzed once. Not a long vibration, not a stream of messages. Just one short buzz that made Henry's whole body go still before Tu Na even moved. He stared at the phone like he'd learned what buzzing meant. Tu Na didn't touch it yet. Her hand hovered, then stopped. Ba Tang crossed the room and slid the phone farther from the edge of the bed. Not harsh, not fast, just quietly, like moving a sharp object away from a child. Tu Na swallowed. The buzz had stopped, but the tension didn't. Outside, somewhere beyond the fields, another phone began to ring, faint, distant, but clear enough in the quiet that Henry lifted his head again. He listened. Tu Na listened too, and neither of them spoke, because the question didn't need words. When the next call comes close, will Alex be allowed to stay, or will someone find a way to pull him away anyway?